couple of rematches in the 4A East for week 1 of the playoffs. Let's start with a game that these two teams met just 3 weeks previously, Cortland and King George. The rematch comes out a little bit different than the first time around. Cortland with a very convincing 42-0 victory over the Foxes. King George really was not able to control that running game like they were the first time around.
Yeah, and my favorite guy, I think, from this game is Jason Hokinson from Cortland. Jason has 17 carries for 120 yards, scored 3 of those touchdowns, and was a big fill in. Blair Lawson, of course, normally one of the key cogs in that three-headed Cortland running back thing they got going on.
Yeah.
And Blair got hurt with an ankle injury.
Right.
Jason steps in and has a great game. And
no doubt.
I think like a lot of people saw coming, Cortland sat there and talked about losing to King George for 5 straight days. We lost to King George, and they came out and said, hey, well, let's get some payback, and that's what happened.
Yeah, I think that loss now is gone, and they're able to move forward. Big game for Cortland. Not a bad season, though, for King George. Let's talk about the Foxes for just a moment. So they finished the season 5-6. They were able to make it into the playoffs. They had to make a little run there at the end to be able to do that. Part of that run was the upset victory over Cortland that sort of was the springboard for them into the playoffs.
Well, I'll tell you what I liked about King George this year was they beat all the teams that you think they were better than. If you look at their losses, they lost to Essex. Essex is a team that's going to contend for a 1A state title this year. Of course, they got this loss to King George. You lose to JM. Again, that's a team that hopes to contend for a region title. You lost to Chancellor, the good version of Chancellor, King George, their losses were to very, very good teams. They're another team that played a pretty difficult schedule, I feel like, and got a good results out of it to get 5 wins out of that.
And they installed a new offense, new offensive system, and I think that it has been successful thus far. I think
absolutely.
The Foxes are on the right track. But a team that certainly is on the right track, Cortland. We'll talk about week 2 in the playoffs for them, but they get by week 1 with a 42-0 win over King George. They will meet the winner of the other game from the area, a rematch of Eastern View and Chancellor. Now this game, Chancellor won the first time around. A little bit of a different mixture of players. Chancellor has gone through some rather significant injuries, not the least of which their quarterback Jason Brown, who is out. Eastern View returns the favor to Chancellor. Eastern View, the Cyclones, with a 28-10 victory over the Chargers. Yeah,
and I think if you're one of the people that defines MVP as the guy who meant the most for his team's individual success, I think it's hard to make a case that it isn't Josh Stallings when you consider how much he does for the Eastern View offense. In this one, he has 19 carries for 105 yards, 12 of 20 passing for 288 yards, throws for a pair of touchdowns. I mean, just a great all-around weapon for them, and a guy that's been able to lead his Eastern View team to a lot of success. And now they're 9-2. They're going to get another playoff crack at Cortland, and that's good for the Cyclones. I think Stallings has been the guy, certainly.
No doubt, yeah, and I wish that we had the deep statistical analysis that an ESPN had or something to be able to do a comparison of how much Stallings means to the Cyclones offense compared to others. We've seen some others in the area who have significant touches and yards, but Stallings, no doubt, is what's making Eastern View go right now. But they do have some other talented players. Sure. Diego Hunter with 130 yards receiving in this game and a touchdown. I also mentioned Mario Wisdom for Chancellor. He had 30 carries on 127 yards. I was wondering where you were going with that when you were leading into Josh Stallings. Jason Brown was awfully important to this Chancellor team as well.
Absolutely, and I think will be what Chancellor takes away from this one is it different with Jason Brown at quarterback? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's certainly a great season for Chancellor, and right on schedule with this, what has been the plan, the let's rebuild with young kids, right on schedule, 7-4, very competitive this year, good group coming back next year, good chance to continue to move up.
We are in the week of November 18th, 2015. Mark Coleman, V2SN, going on the record. Chancellor, a preseason top 5 next year.
Wow. I'll put that down.
Put it down. Speaking of which, so the Freelance Star did a pretty darn good job of predicting. The top 5 was awfully accurate, and the top 10 even was pretty spot on.
We didn't do bad, as it turns out. We think we do awful about it, but all our top 5 is still alive in the playoffs. Our preseason top 5 was Massaponax, Riverbend, Cortland, North Stafford, and Eastern View. all still alive in the playoffs. That's not bad.
That's not bad at all. And the strategy here, of course, is when the predictions are not good, you dismiss them. But when they're good, you've got to make sure that everyone knows about it, right? Absolutely, absolutely. Well, let's talk about this rematch, or it's not a rematch. Let's talk about the matchup for Week 2, Eastern View, Cortland. This game will be at Cortland. Does Eastern View have the firepower to be able to match up with Cortland?
That's a good question. There are two, of course, the two best teams Eastern View now will have played this year, I think, are Sharando, a team that handled the Cyclones, and now Cortland will be at worst the second best team, if not the best team they've played all year. And I don't know that it's about firepower for Eastern View, but I think you look at the King George formula and what they did. Limit Cortland, play good defense, tackle, make Cortland go the length of the field in as many plays as possible, as often as possible. You know, no big runs, no big, force them in errors. That's what you got to do as Eastern View. I don't think you're going to want to get into a game where it's up and down the field.
Now, I admittedly don't know as much about Eastern View. Do they have as many kids that go both ways? It's one of the things that concerns me a little bit from Cortland. I like that team, but they have key players, especially skill players, that go both ways. Very talented on both sides of the ball.
I think you see that from Eastern View as well. Even Stallings, who as a senior said, you know what, I'm playing defense.
Yeah.
I think at this point, I think that's probably a push between the two. And Eastern View just can't afford mistakes, and you've got to force Cortland into mistakes.
Right.
That's how the Cyclones win. If you're Cortland, you play clean, you play ahead of the chains.
Take care of the ball.
And I think you're in good shape.
Yeah. Should be another exciting game.
We've
got some good matchups. It's almost unfortunate we see these matchups where we've got two area teams because only one of them is going to be able to advance.
Exactly.
So Eastern View with a 28-10 win over Chancellor.